Hello guys, welcome back to our anime moment. Guys, please like the video and subscribe to my channel. Today is explanation of Martial Universe Season 10 Part 4 based on novel. So let's start. Tribute? Lindong was slightly startled for a moment before he came to a sudden comprehension. This place was the junction between 100 Beast Ridge and Deep Lightning Mountain. Therefore, in order for the Ninetail tribe to live here peacefully, they naturally had to pay a tribute to these two factions. Why are all of you hiding? The women of our Ninetail tribe are all extremely beautiful. Hence, it is very easy for us to attract trouble. If we catch the eye of those who come to collect tributes, there will be a great deal of trouble. Xinqing's eyes were dim. Perhaps being beautiful would bring a lot of benefits if one was born someplace else. However, it was extremely dangerous in a place like this. In fact, one could even end up implicating one's entire tribe if one was careless. Lindong was quiet. The Ninetail tribe was extremely beautiful, but they did not have the ability to protect their beauty. Previously, there was someone called Gang from 100 Beast Ridge, who came to collect the tribute. Sister Xinqing caught his eye and he insisted on taking her as a concubine. In order to protect her, the chief asked her to temporarily leave the Beast War region. Subsequently, our Ninetail tribe had to pay quite a hefty price before Gang reluctantly let this matter go to rest, a young lady angrily said. Gang. Lindong glanced at Xinqing, who was gently biting her small mouth. He is one of the 9 warriors of 100 Beast Ridge and is extremely powerful. His strength is not inferior to that of Cao Ying from Blood Python City. Xinqing said. In the face of such oppressive force, she had no means of retaliating besides fleeing. Lindong nodded slightly. He turned his eyes and looked outside the village. This place was quite secluded. Coincidentally, it was also possible to see the scenery in the distance. At this moment, there were thick clouds of dust rising in that direction, while the thundering sound of galloping horses could be faintly heard. Ha ha, members of the Ninetail tribe, hand over this year's tribute. As the dust scattered, a loud laughter immediately reverberated over the village like thunder. Following this, the dust settled and one could see a black mass of people appearing outside the village. Their evil and ferocious auras caused even dark clouds to gather in the sky. This voice. The expressions of Xinqing's group changed drastically after hearing this loud laughter. Is that Gang? Lindong came to a comprehension when he saw this. Ah, damn it, why is he the one who is collecting tribute from our Ninetail tribe? Xinqing gently bit her lips while uneasiness surged in her eyes. Lindong slightly narrowed his eyes. He looked outside and saw a burly man standing in front of the group. This man was baring his upper body, while the surface of his body gave off the luster of black rock. A brutal and ferocious aura spread from him. At this moment, this figure was riding a huge blood-red bat as he smiled and looked at the Ninetail village. The light barrier covering the Ninetail village rippled soon after the loud laughter sounded as Aunt Xin led some experts from the Ninetail village and stepped out. Ha ha, Chief Xin, it is time to hand over the tribute. I believe that there is no need for me to tell you the amount, am I right? The man seated on the blood bat smilingly looked at Aunt Xin and spoke in a lazy manner. Oh, it is Lord Gang, Aunt Xin nodded. She waved her hand before a Qianquan bag flew towards the man called Gang. There are 10 million Xian Yuan pills inside. Gang grabbed the Qianquan bag. He casually glanced at it before tossing it to his subordinate behind and laughed. Chief Xin is really easy to talk to. My Ninetail tribe still requires the protection of the 100 Beast Ridge. It is only natural that we offer this tribute. Aunt Xin lowered her head and said. Does Chief Xin really think so? Gang asked playfully. Aunt Xin stiffened slightly before quickly nodding. Where is that girl Xinqing? Why didn't she come to visit me now that she has returned? Gang smiled and asked. Aunt Xin's expression changed. She hurriedly said, Lord Gang, my daughter is training in the outside world and has yet to return. Do you really think that my 100 Beast Ridge is blind? Gang laughed cold as he stared at Aunt Xin and said, You should know how I feel about Xinqing. If she comes with me, your Ninetail tribe will be able to enjoy the complete protection of my 100-beast ridge. Moreover, there is no need to hand over such a large tribute every year. Can't you recognize the benefits? Aunt Shin's expression fluctuated. I will be waiting here today. If you don't allow that girl to come out, I can only lead some of my men into the village and search for her. Qin Gang crossed his hands over his chest and spoke indifferently. The expressions of Aunt Shin and the elders of the Ninetail village became extremely ugly. However, they did not dare to show their anger. This led to a stalemate between the two parties for a time. Qin Gang knows that you have returned. Lindong, who was observing the area outside of the village, suddenly turned his head towards Xinqing, who had been peeping outside, and said. Xinqing's pretty face changed upon hearing this. She involuntarily cried out indignantly, "That persistent and hateful fellow! Those fellows refused to leave." A young lady glanced at Xinqing in a somewhat worried manner. Things would likely worsen once those men ran out of patience. Although they could not enter the village if they activated the Ninetail village formation, they would definitely offend Qin Gang. Their Ninetail village might be at the junction between 100 Beast Ridge and Deep Lightning Mountain, but they did not belong to either side. Hence, Deep Lightning Mountain would not help them if 100 Beast Ridge caused them trouble. The young lady secretly glanced at Lindong as she spoke. She was about to speak when Xinqing by the side glared at her. All she could do was to shut her mouth. When Xinqing saw this situation, she secretly sighed. She was clearly aware of Lindong's character. If they were to open their mouths and beg, the latter would definitely lend them a hand. However, Qin Gang was not Cao Ying. Even if he could defeat Qin Gang, what about the aftermath? It would undoubtedly be a declaration of war on 100 Beast Ridge. That huge faction. How could Lindong oppose them all by himself? At that time, Lindong would undoubtedly find himself in great danger. More people are arriving. Lindong looked outside of the village. It was as if he did not detect the exchange of glances between those girls behind him, as he spoke in a faint voice. Oh! Xinqing's group was startled upon hearing this. They lifted their heads and heard rumbling sounds transmitted from another direction. Could it be members from the Deep Lightning Mountain? They actually came at the same time. Rumble. The ground shook as dust surged. A large group of people rapidly approached from a great distance away. Finally, they arrived at the Ninetail village under the stunned eyes of Aunt Shin's group. It was possible to see a fluttering flag with the word mountain within the group. It is the mountain general from Deep Lightning Mountain, Ming Shan. Qin Gang frowned as he looked at the group that had arrived. Clearly, he did not expect to meet members of Deep Lightning Mountain. Qin Gang? It is surprising that you are here too. When Qin Gang discovered the leader of this group, the latter had also noticed his presence. The latter was startled as he curled the corner of his mouth and said. The person who had arrived had a skinny figure. His skin was dark yellow in color. If one was to look carefully, one would discover a layer of yellowish tiny scales that appeared somewhat mysterious. Lord Ming Shan, it isn't time for Deep Lightning Mountain to collect their tribute, is it? Aunt Xinqing looked at Ming Shan and asked. I am not here to collect tribute from your Ninetail village. Ming Shan glanced at Aunt Xin and laughed. After which, he threw his somewhat shady eyes towards the Ninetail village. I am here to look for a human. He is called Lindong. You should know. Aunt Xin's expression slightly altered. She said, we do not know. Chief Xin, please don't lie to him. Based on what I know, Blood Python City spent a great fortune to cause trouble for Lindong. Clearly, he is hired by them. Qin Gan laughed strangely. He really wanted the Ninetail tribe to offend Deep Lightning Mountain. At that time, the Ninetail tribe will have no choice but to cede to his demands. Aunt Xin clenched her hands tightly. Her eyes were deeply worried. It was likely that she did not expect things to develop like this. Oh, it seems that I have been dragged into this matter. In the village, Lindong suddenly smiled as he stood up. So Lindong, why don't you leave from the back? Xinqing suddenly grabbed Lindong's clothes as she spoke with red eyes. She was aware of how troublesome it would be if he got dragged into the matter. Although I don't like trouble, Lindong rubbed Xinqing's small head and smiled. However, his pitch-black eyes contained an extremely sharp expression. I am not afraid of it. In this world, if one chooses to hide when faced with trouble, there will come a time when one can no longer hide. Instead of that, it is best to get rid of the root of the problem right from the beginning. But that is Deep Lightning Mountain. They are much stronger than Blood Python City. Xinqing hurriedly said. Relax. Lindong comforted her. His body moved and turned into a light figure that hurried out of the village. Xinqing could only stomp her feet gently upon seeing this. After which, she lifted her head and looked outside of the village. A large group of people had already completely surrounded her entire village. The atmosphere inside the Ninetail village became a little uneasy due to this. A distance away from the Ninetail village, the land beneath suddenly trembled, as Lindong exited the village. A black torrent surged past just like floodwater. This group was rather stealthy as they swiftly traveled. The dark red eyes were like ferocious beasts. Given the aura of this group, they could be considered as an army. That almost corporeal ferocious aura was far superior compared to those people from the Blood Python City. A black flag swayed with the wind amongst this black army. There was a huge bloody word on it. It looked like an absolute, ferocious tiger that was about to break free from the flag. That word was Yang. In front of the Ninetail village, two groups of men had surrounded the village until nobody could enter or leave. At this moment, these two groups wore unfriendly expressions as they looked at the Ninetail village. A fierce glint flashed in their eyes, allowing one to understand that they were not friendly individuals. Village Chief Shin, I will give you another 5 minutes. If you do not hand over Lindong, don't blame me for showing no mercy when I enter to catch him forcefully. Ming Shan's hands were wrapped around his chest. He lowered his eyes slightly as he spoke in a faint voice. Standing beside him, Qin Gang observed this scene with a smile. He had no intention of speaking up. Clearly, he wanted the Ninetail village to offend Ming Shan. Aunt Xin clenched her hand under her sleeve. The Ninetail elders beside her had extremely ugly expressions as well. This threat from Ming Shan made them feel extremely anxious. If this matter was not resolved appropriately, their Ninetail village might lose the protection of the two strongest factions in this region. At that time, some of the other factions, who have been eyeing their Ninetail village for a long time, would take advantage and invade them. Aunt Xin's eyes flickered. She clenched her teeth and was about to speak when her expression suddenly changed. The light barrier behind her rippled before a young man slowly walked out from it. My friend, you are quite a well-known individual in the Beast War region. To purposefully make things difficult for a group of women, aren't you going a little overboard? A faint laughter was also emitted from the ripple. Soon after, Lindong landed beside Aunt Xin as many pairs of eyes suddenly turned towards him. You are that Lindong? Ming Shan's and Qin Gang's eyes paused on Lindong at this moment. It seemed like they were a little curious about this person, who had recently caused a commotion in the Beast War region. Facing their fearsome gazes, Lindong's expression did not change. Instead, all he did was smile as he quietly admitted. Although there are other humans in the Beast War region, it is rare for any of them to act so arrogantly here. Ming Shan's yellowish eyes stared at Lindong. He parted his mouth and said, I have accepted some benefits from the Blood Python City. Hence, you must come with me today. Relax, I will not do anything to you. All I will do is hand you over to Cao Ying. Lindong looked at Ming Shan, before he quickly glanced at the ferocious group behind him and laughed. I'm sorry, I am not planning on going anywhere today. Ming Shan laughed upon hearing this. That is not something for you to decide. I know that you are quite powerful and even Cao Ying is unable to deal with you. However, do you think that the mob from Blood Python City can be compared with my Metal Mountain guards? The large group behind suddenly cried out sternly in response to Ming Shan's words. The cry was like thunder that reverberated over the place. Moreover, their aura was like a mountain pressing down, forcing Lindong to step back. Standing beside him, Aunt Xin's group had a change in expression. They felt that even their breathing had become more difficult. Just when they were unable to hold on any longer, a figure stepped forward from behind them. Then, he shouldered that pressuring and shocking aura all by himself. It seems like with regards to today's matter, you plan to pester me till the end. A faint green light surfaced around Lindong's body. He stared at Ming Shan while a sharpness surged deep within his eyes. You still dare to act so arrogantly at this juncture? What an ignorant fool. Ming Shan's eyes became dark and solemn when he saw Lindong's attitude. Clearly, he was a little furious. After all, with his current status and together with the fact that he had brought along an army, not only did that fellow refuse to surrender, he even began to irritate him with his nonsensical words. Young brother Lindong. Aunt Shin's group became very anxious after they saw this tense atmosphere. If they chose to fight with Ming Shan now, there was no guarantee that it will resolve the desperate situation that they were currently in. Moreover, even if it did, what Ming Shan represented was the entire Deep Lightning Mountain. At this moment, Xin Qing and the rest in the village were also anxiously looking at their direction. After all, it would not be beneficial for Lindong if this continued on. Someone capture this brat. Ming Shan laughed coldly. He waved his hand before the eyes of the metal mountain guards behind him turned densely cold. Wave of majestic yuan power fluctuation spread. From a side, Qin Gang watched this scene with chilly eyes. He wanted to see how this human called Lindong was going to escape from the current situation. After all, Ming Shan was even stronger than Cao Ying. Moreover, the metal mountain guards under him were a battle-hardened unit and they were several times stronger when compared to the mob-like forces from Blood Python City. Lindong slowly clenched his hand. As he stared at the lineup in front of him, he knew that things would not end peacefully. In that case, he could only choose to fight. Bang! The land trembled as Lindong's eyes became increasingly sharp. This sudden tremor caused the tense atmosphere to weaken. Rumble. The tremor came closer within an extremely short period of time. Subsequently, everyone in front of the Ninetail village suddenly turned their heads. They were shocked as they looked at the horizon. That was because they saw a black metal-like torrent surging over while being accompanied by a monstrous light ferocity. Wherever the black torrent whistled past, their shocking ferocity would agglomerated into layers of black clouds in the sky. Soon after, the black clouds churned and blotted out the sun, appearing very frightening. Everyone outside of the Ninetail village had some shock in their eyes as they looked at the black torrent rushing over. Their aura far surpassed the two groups currently present. With the approach of this torrent, everyone finally discovered a fluttering flag with the Yang character within the black torrent. It is the tiger-devouring army of General Yang. A ripple-like whistling sound suddenly erupted at this moment. When the two groups led by Ming Shan and Qin Gang heard this incoming whistle, they did not make any unnecessary noise. Instead, a deep trace of fear flashed across their eyes. General Yang. Qin Gang's expression changed as he stared at this black army rushing over. There was deep fear and horror surging within his eyes. The 100 Beast Ridge had many conflicts with the Deep Lightning Mountain. Various battles of different sizes had erupted again and again. However, during these fights, the army known as the Tiger-Devouring Army had always forced the 100 Beast Ridge to pay a hefty price. The commander of that army was also the most fearsome general in Deep Lightning Mountain, General Yang. He was an extremely fearsome warrior, who had swiftly rose in the Beast War region at a shocking pace in the past 1 year. Why did this ruthless character come as well? Qin Gang tugged at the corner of his lips. Then, he glanced pitifully at Lindong. It seems like he will wound up in a pretty miserable state today. That is the tiger-devouring army. When Aunt Shin's group saw the black army rushing towards them, their expressions became ashen. They were still able to remain calm in the face of Ming Shan and Qin Gang. However, the courage in their hearts finally began to collapse in front of this black army, which was accompanied by a monstrous and fearsome aura. It was the strongest army in the Deep Lightning Mountain. At the same time, it was also the most vicious one, and they always believed in eliminating all their enemies. Therefore, only a sea of blood and a mountain of corpses remained wherever the tiger-devouring army went. If this ferocious force attacked their Ninetail village, their village would likely be turned into a river of blood. Lindong also frowned as he stared at that incoming black army. The dense, seemingly solidified brutal aura caused his eyes to turn grave. This army was clearly the strongest one Lindong had met since arriving at the demon region. Is that also a faction from the deep lightning mountain? It is indeed extremely powerful. Lindong inhaled a deep breath of air. Lightning and black light surged within his eyes. It seems like he was in for a bitter fight today. Rumble. The black torrent arrived with a charging momentum. A moment later, it gradually appeared in front of everyone's sight. Their fearsome and murderous aura caused everyone's breathing to become a little sluggish. With the approach of this army, everyone could see countless pairs of ruthless and emotionless dark red eyes under their armors. Of course, even though this black army had a frightening and fearsome aura, everyone's eyes quickly turned to the middle of this torrent. An even more terrifying and ferocious aura rose into the sky from that spot. If the tiger-devouring army was made up of incomparably fearsome tigers, the metal tower man in the middle of the army was the genuine king of tigers. The man had a metal tower-like body. Dense violent aura seemed to agglomerate into a blood-red tiger-like figure. Its tiger eyes scanned the place, appearing as though it was looking down on the world. Its ferocity was overwhelming. Many pairs of eyes gathered on the metal tower-like body as rich horror filled their eyes. Even Ming Shan was no exception. Lindong's eyes were also looking at the metal tower figure. However, his eyes slowly became sluggish, while his typically calm face had an extremely stunned expression. Standing beside him, Anshin could only smile bitterly upon seeing this. Their situation was becoming increasingly desperate. The black torrent ignored these gazes, which contained despair, as they charged forward in an extremely domineering manner. After which, they tore through the defensive lines of the two groups. People tumbled, but not a single person dared to curse them. Bang! The black torrent paused outside of the stockade. An extreme silence took over, causing the hearts of many to pound violently. After that large army stopped, that black torrent parted. After which, everyone saw a ferocious metal tower-like figure walking forward. The land itself seemed to tremble as he walked. Ming Shan stared at this metal tower-like figure. His skin twitched and he was about to smile and speak when he realized that the latter did not even look at him. Instead, he walked straight to the skinny young man behind. Ming Shan swallowed the words that had reached his mouth upon seeing this. After which, he observed this scene in bewilderment. The metal tower man's footsteps became even quicker. Finally, a rumbling sound, that was accompanied by an extreme pressure, paused in front of Lindong. Anshin and the rest behind involuntarily trembled. The atmosphere was tense. Its ferocious tiger eyes faced Lindong's calm lake-like eyes. Their bodies were in complete contrast. In fact, Lindong could only reach the thigh of that figure when he stood up. That figure looked just like a giant when placed beside Lindong. However, the following scene left everyone in deep shock. That was because they saw that extremely fearsome tiger, who was known for its brutalness and blood-covered hands, slowly kneeling in front of Lindong. This allowed the young man to look straight at his face. Following which, its blood-dyed scarlet eyes actually became a little moist. "Big brother." Its unusually hoarse and excited voice caused everyone to be startled. Lindong looked at this metal tower-like man, whose appearance had undergone a drastic transformation. Clearly, this 1 year had changed him tremendously. However, Lindong was still able to detect a familiar sensation from those scarlet tiger eyes. "You brat." Lindong finally smiled and extended his hand, amidst the deathly silent atmosphere and stunned eyes around him. He gently rubbed the hair of the metal tower-like man and released a deep sigh. "I have finally found you." A deathly still and almost frozen atmosphere circled the area outside of the Ninetail village. Everyone was completely stunned because of the scene in front of them. The most ferocious warrior of Deep Lightning Mountain was actually kneeling on one knee in front of this skinny young man whom seemed so flimsy that a single slap from the former would likely turn him into meat pulp. Moreover, the red tiger eyes caused everyone to be filled with an absurd feeling. How could this fierce warrior who was renowned for his brutality actually show such an appearance? If one was to say that this person would shed tears within Deep Lightning Mountain, it would likely immediately attract a large number of gazes that looked as though they were watching a fool. However, this scene had truly appeared in front of them at this moment. Ming Shan was also stunned as he gazed at the metal tower-like figure kneeling with one knee on the ground. He clearly remembered that when the demon commander recruited the latter as a general, this metal tower-like man did not even kneel before the commander. Now, however, he was kneeling before a human. Since even Ming Shan was stunned, even less needed to be said about the others from Deep Lightning Mountain. Their mouths twitched as they watched this scene. All of them clearly understood that an uproar would envelope the entire Deep Lightning Mountain if word of this spread. Behind Lindong, the originally despairing Aunt Xin and the rest were also startled because of this scene. They were closest to Lindong, hence they naturally heard the words from the metal tower man's mouth. Big brother. Aunt Xin's group was taken aback. However, they quickly understood the situation. Could it be that this #1 ferocious warrior of Deep Lightning Mountain was the person that Lindong had come to the Beast War region to look for? Their expressions involuntarily became a little strange when they thought of this. They did believe that someone who could be brothers with Lindong should possess a certain level of strength. However, they would never expected that this so-called certain level of strength had actually reached the level of the Deep Lightning Mountain's top ferocious warrior. What is going on? Those young ladies within the Ninetail tribe also hurriedly looked outside of the village. The appearance of the Black Army earlier had caused their faces to pale. However, they quickly saw this incredible scene. Is that the tiger-devouring army? Could that man be the top fierce warrior of Deep Lightning Mountain, General Flame? Why would he kneel in front of Sir Lindong? What is going on? Continuous chatter like 100 birds chirping continued to spread across the area. Those young ladies widened their eyes as they looked outside. Their eyes were filled with curiosity and confusion. Is he the brother that Lindong is looking for? Qing was also startled as she looked outside of the village before she finally ended up mumbling in a soft voice. This scene before her had clearly clued her in onto something. What? The top fierce warrior of Deep Lightning Mountain is actually the brother of Sir Lindong? How amazing! That fellow is said to be extremely brutal. I never would have imagined that he would be so gentle in front of Sir Lindong. Lindong gently ruffled the hair of the metal tower man in front of him. His heart was also surging wildly with intense feelings. Little Martin was the most difficult to bully amongst the three of them. Hence, Lindong was not worried about the latter's safety. Others should be thanking the heavens if Little Martin did not find trouble with them. Only Little Flame caused Lindong to be greatly worried. This fellow was usually simple and honest. This was because most things were decided for him by Lindong and Little Martin, and Little Flame did not need to think much. All he did was to do as he was told by the both of them. The demon region was chaotic. Naturally, Lindong was worried that Little Flame had met with some trouble. Now that he had seen the latter standing in front of him alive, he was finally able to put aside the worry in his heart. It is good that you are still alive. Lindong looked at the moist red tiger eyes of the metal tower young man in front of him and laughed. Stand up. This is so unsightly. Little Flame nodded. Some of the injury on his face caused him to appear exceptionally savage and ferocious. Under Lindong's gaze, his ferocious face, which could cause one's limbs to turn to jelly, revealed a simple and honest smile that had not appeared for a long time. You have many injuries. It must have been hard on you during these few years. Lindong only managed to carefully observe Little Flame after he stood up. The current Little Flame was a lot stronger compared to before. He had clearly experienced too much. It was possible to see this from the many overlapping scars on his body. This caused Lindong's heart to somewhat ache. Nevertheless, he understood that Little Flame must be allowed to roam the world alone in order to truly hone himself. Little Flame was a ferocious tiger and not a strong cat that followed obediently behind him and Little Martin. Little Flame parted his mouth into a smile. He quickly said, I will tell Big Brother about the various incidents during the past year, but I need to first settle something. Lindong looked at Ming Shan, whose expression had suddenly stiffened. He nodded slightly and did not speak. There was now no need for Lindong to comment when Little Flame did anything. Little Flame turned around. The moment he did so, everyone could sense the monstrous brutality that seemed to have completely disappeared from his body earlier suddenly surged crazily like floodwaters. At this moment, he had once again become the tiger-devouring army's #1 ferocious general of Deep Lightning Mountain. As Little Flame turned around, his scarlet eyes were thrown onto the stiff-faced Ming Shan. The latter's body involuntarily trembled upon seeing those tiger eyes which were filled with ferocity. A forced smile appeared on his face as he said, "Ha ha, it is Brother Yang. I never imagined that you would be acquainted with this Brother Lindong. I have sent someone to pass this information to you before." Little Flame took a step forward and headed towards Ming Shan. Dark red blood light slowly gathered behind him. It seemed to have turned into a blood-red light tiger that roared towards the sky, an extremely ferocious sight. Ming Shan's expression quickly altered. He was indeed aware that Little Flame had dispatched someone to pass this information to him. However, he had already begun to move and had simply sent someone to stop the messenger. "Brother Flame, it is a misunderstanding. If I had known of your relation with him, I definitely would not have come here." Ming Shan hurriedly spoke as he smiled. Although he was also one of the 9 great warriors of Deep Lightning Mountain, he clearly understood that he must not offend Little Flame. Otherwise, the latter would not have such be able to firmly sit in the position of top warrior within a short 1 year. A misunderstanding, huh? Little Flame stopped in front of Ming Shan. He parted his mouth into a smile. Those sinisterly white teeth caused one to shudder. Ming Shan hurriedly nodded upon hearing this. "However, you must still die." A smile emerged from the corners of Little Flame's mouth and instantly became malicious. He clenched his large hand and a fist was thrown forward. Monstrous blood light gathered, turning into a blood-red light tiger that was accompanied by shocking ferocity as it ruthlessly rushed towards Ming Shan in an explosive manner. "You?" Ming Shan's expression changed drastically. In the next moment, majestic Yuan power erupted from within his body and turned into an enormous yellow wall. Bang! The huge fist smashed downwards in a ruthless fashion and the wall collapsed. Rock fragments shot outwards as Ming Shan retreated in a miserable fashion while yellow light symbols surfaced on his body. They appeared like a layer of scales that were incomparably hard. "General Yang, how dare you try to kill me? The Lord will not forgive you." Ming Shan cried out furiously. The expressions of Ming Shan's Metal Mountain guards changed when they saw him being attacked. However, before they could step forward, they suddenly detected a shockingly ferocious aura crash into them. All of them hurriedly lifted their heads. They could see the Black Army's many pairs of dark red eyes staring at them. Those expressions made them understand that if they were to take a step forward, a slaughter would be awaiting them. This tiger-devouring army which only knew how to kill clearly would not show any mercy just because they belonged to Deep Lightning Mountain. In their eyes, only General Yang existed. There was no one else, not even the demon commander of Deep Lightning Mountain. This was because this was an army personally built by General Yang. Little Flame's footsteps paused for a moment because of Ming Shan's furious cry. The latter thought that his warning was effective upon seeing this. However, before he could sigh in relief, he saw cruelness gathering at a shocking speed within Little Flame's tiger eyes. Bang! While unease clouded Ming Shan's heart, he saw Little Flame's body suddenly turning illusory. His expression quickly changed and he violently pulled back. A shadow appeared behind him in a ghost-like fashion as he pulled back. Before his expression could pale due to horror, a black giant tiger claw tore through space and grabbed his arm. After which, the black figure abruptly pulled and ruthlessly smashed Ming Shan onto the mountain wall at their side. Bang bang bang. The mountain collapsed. Soon after, everyone inhaled a breath of cold air as they saw the metal tower-like figure violently swing Ming Shan onto the surroundings. Within a short 10 breaths, the ground was already covered with deep pits. Many big dents had also appeared on the rock walls by the side. Violence. This term had been perfectly displayed by Little Flame. Ming Shan, whose strength was half a step into the perfect profound death stage, was actually completely unable to retaliate. Lindong wore a surprised expression as he watched this scene. Little Flame's strength should be at the advanced profound death stage. However, Lindong could detect a somewhat mysterious ripple from Little Flame's body. It seemed that Little Flame had his own lucky encounter during this 1 year. Otherwise, it would be impossible for his level to exceed Lindong even with his evolving physique. Bang! Dust gradually fell in front of the many watching eyes. After which, everyone saw the metal tower-like figure dragging a body that one did not know was dead or alive as he walked out of the dust. He casually tossed the figure at those metal mountain guards as if it was garbage. Get lost. Little Flame's scarlet eyes looked at the group of metal mountain guards as he spoke in a hoarse voice. The metal mountain guards who previously gave off an oppressive aura immediately backed away in horror. They did not have the least bit of courage against this #1 ferocious warrior of Deep Lightning Mountain. The place quickly became a little spacious as the metal mountain guards miserably withdrew. After which, Little Flame turned around and looked at the somewhat pale Qin Gang before parting his mouth as he laughed. Why aren't you leaving? The Ninetail village is under my protection. I will kill anyone from your 100 Beast Ridge if you dare come and collect the tribute. Qin Gang's face twitched. He wanted to retort, however, in the face of Little Flame's scarlet tiger eyes and Ming Shan's earlier fate, he ultimately swallowed the words that were at the tip of his tongue. He slapped the bat under him and decisively turned around. Finally, he led his group and fled miserably into the distance. Anshin's group watched the outside area of the village which had become completely empty within a couple of minutes. After which, they looked at the now simple and honest-looking Little Flame, who had turned around and walked towards Lindong. They could only silently digest the shock in their hearts. The #1 ferocious general was a well-deserved title. This video will end here.